Hello, and we're back with another exciting episode of Live at Evolution. I'm your host, Jevin Lefebvre, and today we have a brilliant singer-songwriter based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, who's coming off the release of his solo album, All My Friends, back in October 2022, along with being the frontman for the indie rock band BendSinister for over 20 years and counting. Dan Moxon,
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining the show. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So, what's the latest in Dan's life?
Well, I'm excited to say BendSinister's back in the studio working on a new record. We haven't kind of put out new material since pre-pandemic other than some just sort of B-sides and things like that. But we just did 4 new songs at a studio called Afterlife in Vancouver. And it's kind of really exciting to get back into the sort of rock and roll world. I put out obviously my own solo record, but it's all kind of a bit more chill. And with BendSinister, I mean, especially this record, I'm like, my voice is like just, to the tilt the whole time. And so it takes a bit of getting back into the swing of it, to really give her. And, but it's just, I'm really excited about the new songs sounding pretty, rock and roll. So I like to kind of jump between both worlds, but it's just nice to keep being creative and get a chance to put out, interesting music.
No, I 100% get it. So what was the driving force to getting BendSinister back in the studio?
Well, we talk about it for ages. Honestly, we've had songs, we would record voice memos at rehearsals and jams. We jam like once or twice a week, fairly standard. And the biggest thing is just being lazy about it, that we don't actually book the time and finish everything. And so we'll have like songs that we've been working on for 3 years that, you finally are like, let's finish this and put it on a record. And so, there's a few that we have about a batch of 12 new songs. A bunch of them are older. We kind of picked more newer ones that were our favorites to kind of go in and do first as possible singles and things. But really it's just a matter of carving out the time, because everybody's got their own life on the side. And, I've got a 1-year-old at home and people are busy. Joseph's, our guitar player is high up in the sort of, music industry world, and so he's busy managing other artists and doing all sorts of music industry things, and everybody's busy, so to get time to get together and actually make it happen is getting challenging sometimes. So
Well, me and my team couldn't be more excited to have you in the studio doing this episode with us. So how about we get this everything started with a song?
Sure. So I'm going to sort of warm it up with a song called The Storm We Know, which is track 2 from my new record. This is like a good example. It's one that I was humming and hawing about these chords for almost 3 years, and, finally got it together to put out on my record, which I recorded last year this time. And it's just a nice kind of slow, groovy song to get things rolling here, and I'll give it a whirl and see what you think.
Well, I can't wait to hear it.
Some say what good is tomorrow when we can live for today. In my life I've never gone hungry, and I never needed to pray. No fears of persecution, no bricks crumbling down on my walls, no fights so hard that I put up my guard, run bloody, crying down the street. But still, life seems so hard. Yes, it does. The storm we know is like a breeze. and its privilege gets in the way. But I was taught to love thy neighbor, 'cause we all got the same bills to pay. We can learn from teaching each other. We can all learn how to save the day. But if we're all out there crusading, who's left keeping the waters at bay? But still, life seems so hard. Yes, it does. The storm we know is like a breeze. The cold sets in, but we'll never freeze. The water may get rough, but we'll break the seas. 'Cause the storm we know is like a breeze. Yes, the storm we know is like a breeze.
Dan Moxon with The Storm We Know here on Live at Evolution. That was an absolutely beautiful song.
Oh, thank you.
What was the inspiration behind that?
I mean, I was just thinking, I kind of bring in some lines about privilege and things like that, but just how me being a kid that's Caucasian and Canadian and grew up in a small town, Kelowna, really didn't have to face the same sort of life struggles and challenges and all the sorts of challenges as you would be in some other parts of the world, or having different ethnicities or whatnot, and everybody's life experience is different, but at the same time you still think, man, my life's so hard sometimes, and so it's that kind of play about being, the storm that you do know is I mean, I say the storm is like a breeze in a way because my storm has been so, easy in comparison, but you have to sort of reflect on that sometimes and think about all the people who aren't as fortunate.
Oh, that's a very beautiful message.
Oh, thanks.
That's I really like the way you portrayed that song, and the piano and your vocals were really shown.
Sean, yeah,
Sean,
like
yeah, they were really good, that song. So
right on, man.
I was what inspired you to branch off and release solo projects?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, BendSinister has been my project since I was in high school in Kelowna, and for a long time it was just my main thing. So if I wrote a song, it was going to that, and that was the band, and that was this sort of vibe. But as time went on, it kind of formulated a life of its own, and the way that we have it now, with most of the members of BendSinister have been in the band for quite a long time, and we kind of do all the writing together in the room. It's not so, like in the early days I would just write complete songs and be like, here's the song, you figure out your bass part, you figure out your drum part, whatever. But I was very kind of controlling, and it was sort of my, I was the sort of shot caller, and now with BendSinister stuff, I still write the lyrics, but we tend to write them with two or three of the other guys, and we try to do everything as a band. And I'll still bring chords and ideas and try to shape things, but we kind of work on it as a band. And so sometimes, when I have a song that's especially more on the mellow side, or just something that I could see more with like a string section or orchestra or horns or whatever, it's just, I know that when I bring it to the BendSinister world, it's going to become, with their pushes and their influence, more rock and roll and very, heavier, kind of faster and high energy. And sometimes a song doesn't call for that. So I'll put those songs aside and use them, in my solo stuff. And it's not that I don't want to have like upbeat rock songs in my, when I put out solo records, but I just tend to sort of be a little bit more chill, I guess, in those things. And I would, I'd love to dig into the world of being like, the instrumentation and orchestration of like Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, or, David Bowie, or people where you're just really experimenting with sounds and things. And, but so far I've just kind of had a little bit, it's, I'm more on the mellow side with my solo stuff, though. I guess if you listen to the record in full, there's some more Motown influences too. And, there's lots of horns and lots of strings, and who knows what the next album will bring too. I might even switch gears completely and go back to playing guitar as the main instrument for another solo record, just to change it up. But I, my sort of favorite instrument is keyboards, so it's hard to stray from that sometimes.
Yeah, hard to fix what's not broken kind of thing. It's like, what's the funkiest sort of sound you've implemented into a song, whether it's like completely out of the blue or random, or what's the most unique sound you've ever kind of implemented?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we tend to, because I was just in the studio, you tend to be pretty, you have a palette that we use, especially with BendSinister, and it often starts, I'm usually on a Rhodes or a Wurlitzer, and then I put in some Hammond and which organ, and everybody, it's kind of got a formula to what we do, so there's not too crazy of a thing. I mean, when we get to have fun, it's usually in the synth world, with putting in sort of Moogs and things. And I just bought a like Juno 60 that I want to play around with a little bit to see about whether it'll make the cut on the new BendSinister stuff. And but in terms of really weird stuff, I'd like to say there's some zany thing. I think maybe on my solo record, the funniest thing was that, on one song that didn't have, that had a bit more percussion, we didn't have all the percussion things that we needed to make the sound. So there's normally a little wood block thing. I don't know what it's called, but it has a sort of a sort of sound that you move along this wood, and we didn't have that, but there was a Dyson vacuum cleaner
No way.
in the studio, and I was like, why don't you just use that drumstick and the top of this Dyson and just roll it around that and try to recreate that sound? And he's like, okay.
Awesome.
And then we put it in the studio and sat there in the control booth, and we're like, well, if you close your eyes, it might as well be that.
Yeah.
And I cannot remember what that instrument is called for the life of me, but I think it's a Mexican style, like wood block thing with a bunch of little grooves, and it sort of does that like one sound.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So
That's really funky. Yeah, because I've heard like producers, they like Billie Eilish's brother, Phineas, he used a crosswalk sound in Australia as a beat in one of Billie's songs. And it's just like the way artists and producers find funky ways to throw sounds into a song. It's pretty creative.
Well, definitely. I mean, there's a whole, I feel like there's this new keyboard, or it's not new, but like called an OP1 or something, that allows you to just like be out and about. It's kind of battery powered, and if you hear something cool like a crosswalk sign, you just like hit record, and then it automatically patches it up, or octaves and up and down, and lets you basically put it into the keyboard and then mess with it with delays and all sorts of things, like all in this small tiny little handheld keyboard. But it's like, yeah, people are always searching for new things. And even with electronic music these days, I'm shocked at how much of it is mostly vocals that they've pitched up an octave or pitched down an octave to make little hooks and things like that. You know, that's a super common thing, which you're like, why wouldn't you use a keyboard or whatever? But it just kind of gives you that unique sound that's unique to that artist because it's still their voice, but it's just used as an instrument, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Well, why don't we get going with another song and
Sure.
see what else you got in the bag?
All right, well, I'll try to liven it up here, but I'll do the first single from my album, All My Friends, which was this song called All My Friends Are Dead, which was kind of it's actually a song, you mentioned that J.P. Maurice is coming in here in a bit, and he co-wrote this song with me at my home studio, and it was just sort of a funny thing where I had this sort of chorus, like all my friends are dead, sort of like just joking words that I threw out there, and we were like, well, what, that's pretty morbid, but it's kind of funny when you put it in the context that your friends aren't really dead, but they're dead because you're all getting older and you don't hang out as much anymore, and it's hard to get people to hang out, and you try to tell somebody to come over or to go out to a show, and they're just like, oh, I can't, I'm working, or I'm watching Netflix, or everybody has an excuse. So the song kind of spawned or came from this idea that it's as you get older, you just don't, nobody, it's harder to get your friends to come out and do things and be a part of social interaction in general, and so we just sort of wrote a bit of a tongue-in-cheek song about that.
Yeah, this All My Friends Are Dead is it's a hit here over at Evolution. A lot of people enjoy
that's cool.
listening
I
to
gotta
it.
say, props to Evolution. They play lots of BendSinister and solo stuff, and so I give my thanks to the station and BCIT for supporting live and local music.
But, can't wait to hear what you got.
Yeah, well, here it is. All My Friends Are Dead. Hey man, what you doing tonight? Do you wanna go and see a show? I would if I could, but I can't, so I won't. But thanks for asking me to go. If you're staying in, I could bring over some gin or soda if it's not your vibe. No can do, even if I wanted to. I gotta be at work by 9. Well, maybe I could see you later. If you're not gonna meet your maker, you're growing old while you're still young. Well, all my friends are dead, so I'm hanging by myself instead. It might not be the end, but all my friends are dead. Now it's Saturday night and I'm feeling alright. I'm looking for somebody to call. I throw out some lines, everybody's got no time. The bills are doing nothing at all. If you're hard up on cash or drunk off your ass, I'll grab the tab and get you on by your curfew. Leave them kids at home, they need some time alone, and they're probably better off without you. Did you ever stop and think to wonder how everyone got 6 feet under? You're growing old while you're still young. All my friends are dead, so I'm hanging by myself instead. It might not be the end, but all my friends are dead. Oh yeah. Did you ever stop and think to wonder how everyone got 6 feet under? You're growing old while you're still young. All my friends are dead, so I'm hanging by myself instead. It might not be the end, but all my friends are dead. I said now all my friends are dead, so I'm myself instead. It might not be the end, but all my friends are dead. I said now all my friends are dead, so I'm hanging by myself instead. Well, yeah, it might not be the end, but all my friends are dead.
All My Friends Are Dead by Dan Moxon here on Live at Evolution. I'm your host, Jevin LaFave. That is that's such a good song. Hearing that live is just something different.
Thanks.
I'm surprised how good you can whistle there. I don't know.
I was a little out of practice there, but normally I can whip out the whistle for sure.
Yeah, whenever I try to whistle for long periods of time, it's like my mouth dries up and just like I can't. So has that ever happened to you? Like whistles falling flat at live shows or something?
At a live show, the trick with whistling is if you're getting too eager, when you whistle directly into the mic, it doesn't work because when you blow into a mic, it just gets the wind sound and not the whistle sound. So you have to kind of aim a little bit below the mic, and it is if you're like nervous and you always have to like lick your lips and get it sort of ready to go beforehand, but I have lots of practice in whistling. I mean, my dad would whistle in the car all the time when I was a kid, and I kind of inherited his. I've got like a little, instead of most people whistle through the middle, I've got a little sort of weird gap in my mouth that's off to the side that just sort of is easy to whistle from. So, so there you go.
So, as curious I am about like your music and your career and all, I kind of want to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
I asked my friends some of these. A very fun question. Desert island. You're going abroad to a desert island. You get to bring a kind of chips, a kind of chocolate, and a kind of candy. What are your three options? One of each.
So a kind of chips, a kind of
chocolate, and a kind of candy.
And a candy. Well, I mean, if that's all, is it like a bountiful amount that you get to eat for a long time that you have to kind of like?
Yeah, you'll have a
think
supply.
about it,
Snap
or
your
like
fingers
in
and you'll
terms
get
of
it.
like sustenance, or is it just strictly whatever my go-to?
Oh, whatever your go-to
favorites is. Well, for chips, I kind of am a bit of a wild card where I would go corn nuts.
Oh, corn nuts.
Can you call that a chip? I mean,
yeah, it's in the same umbrella, kind of.
Same umbrella, but I just do love a good corn nut, or or especially like movie popcorn is amazingly delicious.
Yeah, movie popcorn's different.
But corn nuts, and for chocolate, I mean, I'm a sort of a sucker for like a salted caramel style sort of gourmet type chocolatey thing. But if it had to be straight up from the gas station, would go with like an O. Henry.
O. Henry, that's a classic.
Or maybe something even like wild card, like a Big Turk. That you
you're a Big Turk guy.
Throw in some fake fruit, Turkish delight in there. For the long term. Get some. I don't know if that has any minerals or vitamins in it. Candy, I'm not a big candy guy, but I do love, I would say probably Twizzlers, maybe?
Oh, Twizzlers, yeah.
Just kind of easy to chomp on those.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say candy-wise. I'm sure there's a better candy out there that I could think of, but Twizzlers is definitely, if they happen to be at a party or something, I'll definitely grab one.
Yeah, they're easy to get addicted to, that's for sure. Are you binging anything? Watching anything at the moment?
Well, I guess, obviously Succession just started again, a new season of that. Watched The Last of Us. My soft spot is post-apocalyptic sort of disaster, scenario style things. Doesn't have to be zombies or anything, but just, I love, that, seeing those sort of people living through, a world that's gone apocalyptic or whatnot. I mean, I loved Station 11. I don't know if you ever. It was a Canadian book actually that I read years and years ago, and it got turned into a series I think last year. And that one, it's rare that I shed a tear, but there was almost like a moment in that where I was like literally crying because it was so moving. And that's a really good, also post-apocalyptic series about a troop that travels around doing Shakespeare at like all these sort of like little camps, but it's still very vicious out there with people killing people and eating people and all sorts of things. And I mean, I like The Mandalorian. You know, you can't go wrong with the new season of that. But yeah, I mean, when we're not playing shows or rehearsing and stuff, I do tend to watch too much TV, and so anything HBO or sort of good sort of episodal drama I'll get into. I don't do any reality shows or that sort of thing, but there's tons of good HBO or you know, I can't wait for new shows like there might be a new season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I've seen, you know, Seinfeld probably 20 times over every episode. You know, I used to own the box set and probably watched it on Netflix at least once all the way through. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Seinfeld, the show about nothing.
Mm-hmm. And I always absolutely love South Park, but it's one of the ones you can't find. I don't know, where do you find that streaming?
I'm not too sure, but
it's always very poignant. I think they have like one, you know, a bunch of new episodes about AI and all sorts of things that are very, you know, current, you know, because that's a funny thing. I mean, obviously a bit of an aside, but, you know, when we were writing this new record, Joseph used the AI, what is it called? ChatGPT or whatever. And he's like, write a BendSinister song about a cowboy or blah, blah, blah. He just like typed it out and it like, and the lyrics that spouted out, I was like, you know what? I could use those and be like content with that as a song. It's actually like you change a couple things, but it's like not that bad. You know? And it's just shocking that people, you know, like I'm sure, I bet you anything there's like, you know, electronic producers that are writing their lyrics that way now, just saying like, write me a song in the style of MGMT that's got lyrics about love and Ibiza, and you know. Yeah,
no, it's crazy the way AI has like shifted society. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. But quickly, if you were to perform a single or collab with anyone, with any artist, dead or alive, who are you picking to collab with for a single?
Dead or alive? I mean, I would say, you know, I guess I mean, it's tough to choose one, and especially when you go dead or alive. But I mean, alive, just because I'm such a fan, doing something with Paul McCartney would be a dream, you know. But then you could even go more current, like you mentioned, Billie Eilish would be pretty like fun to do a little something in that vein, you know.
Yeah.
I've covered one of her songs before, and just on piano and vocals, it was you know, really beautiful and really fun to sing. So, but then in terms of other people, like Nina Simone would be really fun to sing with, or Janis Joplin, or geez.
Yeah, you can go forever.
Or Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes, who's still, you know, that would be a really fun person to do a song with. You know, it's tough to think too of people that would, you know, that your voice would sort of tie into theirs if you were doing sort of duet style things or just writing songs with them. But
100%. Well, how about we get into a third song here?
Sure. Maybe I'll do something. I'll play a song I put out my first solo record in 2019. It was called Lounge Singer, and it was the record, it was the idea that, you know, it's so hard to get people to listen to what you're doing, or like actually listen to the music sometimes, that everybody's essentially just a lounge singer on Spotify. You know, it's like your background music, unless, you know, people really care and actually listen to the lyrics or whatnot. And so this was the first single off that record, that was called Where You're Gonna Sleep Tonight, I believe. And it's again kind of a nice, chill, laid back song, but it goes like this. Well, you know I love you, but you make it so hard. Well, I don't wanna leave you, but you caught me off guard. I got so many questions that you can't explain. You left me with heartache and so much pain. So where are you gonna sleep tonight? Where are you gonna sleep tonight? Whenever you're wrong, I pretend that you're right, and I'm never really sure where you're going. Some nights don't I treat you right? Don't I treat you right? I wanna be the man that you want me to be, but I like to shine. Yes, I need you to see, tell the truth to me. Oh, tell the truth to me. I got so many questions that you can't explain. You left me with heartache and so much pain. So where you gonna sleep tonight? Where you gonna sleep tonight? Woo! Where you gonna sleep tonight? Yeah. Oh, where you gonna sleep tonight? I got so many questions that you can't explain. You left me with heartache and so much pain. So where you gonna sleep tonight? Where you gonna sleep tonight? Where you gonna sleep tonight? Where you gonna sleep tonight?
Where you gonna sleep tonight? Here on Live at Evolution by Dan Moxon. I'm your host, Jevin LaFave, and that was just another beautiful song. So your album that you released back in October, as we were talking about, where did you start when you wanted to create that project? Like, what was your first step into making it?
Well, it's kind of funny because I guess a year prior, I had a song that I had co-wrote with JP Maurice, and entered into this sort of Canadian songwriting challenge thing, and then we ended up placing in the top 5 and got some money to record it. So I put out this song as just a standalone single. It was called "Take the Good with the Bad," and it got placement. Like, it's rare that we get a ton of placements, but it got a placement in this Netflix show called Grace and Frankie, which is a pretty decently big show. And my label messaged me, and they're just like, "Hey, we've got this like placement. You're probably gonna get, thousands of sort of hits to your music. You should have some new music coming out. Do you want to put out another song?" And then I always say, like, well, why go into the studio and do one song I always prefer to do an album. So I was like, okay, well I'll just bang out a record instead, and then have a record ready to put out this year. And so it was a crazy quick process, but I had already had about 6 or 7 songs ready to go, and I just had to finish another 5. There's 11 songs in the record, and so I kind of had a month and a bit to sort of hash out these other ideas I had and kind of get the songs together. And then I ended up booking studio time at a local studio called Monarch Studios, which is Tom Dobransky, who used to play in the Zolas, and I booked out 2 days in his studio 2 weeks out, and I was just me, and I thought I would go in and just do it by myself on piano and then kind of build the album up from that. But then I was like, well, maybe it makes more sense to try jamming the songs. And I had, basically a jam plan with BendSinister, but Joseph, the guitar player, was away, and so I just said to Matt and Nick on drums and bass, hey, can you just like try some of these songs and see if they sound cool? And once I gave them the sort of chords and direction, it actually it came together super quick. And so with like one rehearsal, I just had those guys come into the studio with me, and we laid down, as a trio, drums, bass, and piano and vocals, the sort of basics of the album. And then after that, I would kind of do it in chunks, like a day a week in the studio, and I'd have it planned that I'd bring in, I had string players, like a 5-piece strings they kind of built it up with just a cello player and a violin, but I put 5-piece strings on the record and a full, 3-piece horn section through most of the record, and brought in a whole bunch of different vocalists to do the backup vocals. I had like Don Pemberton, who's really well known here in town, and Marin I always forget her, Marin Patronod, who's a amazing singer, and Leo Johnson from Old Soul Rebel, and a bunch of people that just came in, and we'd just do a session where I'd be like, here's 4 songs you've never heard, can you just kind of bang out here's the ideas, and I would get to I like to sort of do the backups because in the band there's the drummer and the bass player are both ladies that are primarily singers, and so they do they're musicians, singers, everything, but they do the backup vocals as well as play bass and drums. And so I tried to recreate that in the studio, but get some of the the powerhouse vocalists that I could source out in Vancouver that would come in and play for me. And so I just built the record from the ground up that way, and I really banged it out very quickly. From like being in the studio at the end of February, it was probably done, all in the can by the end of or the start of June maybe. And I sent the songs as they were being finished straight to Matt Rogers, who plays in the Harpoonist and the Axe Murderer, another local band, and he did the mixes for me, and just kind of focused on the first single and the first songs that were coming out, and then kind of had it staggered so that I put out 3 singles over the summer and the record in the fall. And it was all very quick, but I think it did help because with the song being in the Grace and Frankie show, you can sort of see your numbers through Apple Music and Spotify and whatnot. And like I was getting, the craziest thing was Shazam numbers were like going upwards of getting 1,000 Shazams a week of the song, because it was in the end credit sequence of the show, and I'm assuming that people watch it all over the world. And it was really neat to think that they're sitting there, it shows you where it's from, even it's like all over Europe and South America and all over the place, and people would be watching the show and hear the song and be like, oh, that's a cool song, and then pull out their phone and Shazam it, and then it directs you right to your Apple Music page or your Spotify. And so if you had new songs for them to check out, they would just kind of continue that journey.
Yeah, that's really cool for you. As this episode comes to an end, how about we finish it off with one more song?
Sure. All right. I didn't prepare in advance as to what songs I was going to do, so I'm just kind of playing it by ear, but I kind of think I might do a more upbeat one that is not one of the newer ones, but it's from my other record. It's called The Morning After. It just feels right to do it right now. Nice sort of show closer.
Love it.
Goes like this. The room at my picker, put on your makeup. I'm gonna take you on. You see, the problem ain't with you or me. It's just that things look different now in our sobriety. Had some fun when I was done, so I must bid you farewell. But don't worry, baby, I'll take you home and I'll never kiss and tell. After, yes, the morning after, oh, yes, the morning after was a bore to do, yeah. Wake up, get in my pickup, put on your makeup. I'm gonna take you home. We did a la 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 oh la 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 oh. What's a boy to do? After, it's the morning after, yeah, it's the morning after, what's a boy to do? Wake up, get in my pickup, put on your makeup, I'm gonna take you home.
That was Dan Moxon with The Morning After here on Live at Evolution. I'm your host, Jevin LaFave. Dan, this has been nothing short of amazing. We really appreciate you taking your time to join us.
Great, well, thanks for having me.
Where can the viewers and listeners find anything related to Dan Moxon?
Yes, so obviously socials, Instagram, Dan_Moxon, I believe, Facebook, Dan Moxon Music, and you can, just Google BendSinister. I know I've gotten so used to whenever I'm talking loudly in a bar about the name, I have to physically use my hands to do a bend symbol and be like, it's BendSinister, because people think my name's Ben and the band is BendSinister, but it's BendSinister, and yeah, it's, I believe, on Instagram, Bend_Sinister, and BendSinister Band on Facebook, and yeah, there's a lot. We got YouTube. The only thing we haven't really embraced yet is TikTok, and I'm just kind of lazy about it. But I do see that we should be on TikTok, and you could just be putting out little contents and snippets. But it's just when you're of a certain age, I just hit 40. I'm just like, do I really want to be playing the TikTok game and really pushing that? But I guess you kind of got to a certain degree, right?
Yeah. No, I totally understand. But Dan, thank you again for joining us. And that does it for this episode of Live at Evolution. I'm your host, Jevin LaFave. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Stay sweet.
All right.
That was awesome, Dan.
Sweet. Worked out.